UMP parliamentarian Sujiva Senasinghe points out that the government has provided Christmas presents to the wealthy through the budget. The parliamentarian made this statement during a function held to establish a UMP Balamandalaya in the Walpola area in Angoda.
When Santa Claus asks what you want for Christmas, they tell him, give us a chance to bring all the money we made into the country. The reply is that people can now bring in up to $5 million into the country and no questions will be asked. 700 million can be brought into the country and no questions will be asked. Most of the businessmen in Sri Lanka do not have that sort of money. Only those who are carrying out government contracts have such amounts. If I was in parliament, I would have been able to show such people. Then another child raises his hand and Santa asks him what he wants. He says he wants racing cars. As a result, racing cars can be brought in freely. If they impose taxes, they will have to charge around 60 million rupees on taxes alone. Such a car, which is worth around 100 million rupees, is sitting in the driveway of a certain house. Did they at least reduce taxes on bicycles or motorcycles, which the common man uses? No.
Up next is a look at Action TV.
For 6 months now, academic activity at the Kamrugamuwa Mahavidyalaya in Mathura, which lays claim to a proud history of 104 years, has been following a two-term system. Over 200 students from grade 6 to 11 who were receiving education at 4 adjacent schools were transferred here in January, with the Kamrugamuwa Mahavidyalaya coming under the 1000 secondary schools program. About a month later, it dawned upon the principal that it would be difficult to continue to have the school function with the additional influx of students due to the lack of resources. We brought the education minister here and showed him the difficulties we were facing with regard to space for the students. I also met with the education secretary and other authorities and told them of our plight, and they said that construction here would be completed as soon as possible. Following inspection tours by the Minister of Education and subsequently the Southern Provincial Minister of Education in the first week of February, earth tremors experienced in the area left 3 of the dilapidated buildings at this school in a precarious state. While one of these buildings is the main school building that was constructed with the opening of the school over 100 years ago, the other 2 buildings are over half a century old. Students who are preparing to sit for the advanced level examination in the science stream were the worst affected by the failure of the education authorities to establish even temporary classrooms, taking into consideration the sudden influx of over 200 students. The doors and windows of the main school building have been removed and stored inside the building, which used to house laboratory facilities.
We lost 13 classrooms. We have been unable to submit the practical test. As advanced level students, we still do not have an allotted space for our academic activity.
The students are in tears, especially the year 12 students who decided to study in this stream have been left to despair. Even though more than 6 months have passed, we are yet to receive any relief. If true development is to be introduced to the schools in the island through the 1000 secondary schools program, then shouldn't some level of priority be given to this school? Secretary to the Ministry of Education, this one is over to you.
The group, including Western Provincial Council Attorney-at-Law Shira Laktilaka, issued an open challenge today to the UNP leadership to invite their group too for the UNP convention. They request that Ranil Wickremesinghe, who shows a democratic face to the world as the deputy chair of the Asian region of the International Democrats Association, prove this by practicing the same democracy in his party. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister Rohitha Abeygunawardene says that as a result of Ranil Wickremesinghe's actions, there are no parliamentarians left in the UNP to speak on the budget.
Yesterday, when 14 of our parliamentarians spoke in Parliament, there were only 2 parliamentarians from the UNP. There are no MPs left in the UNP to even speak on the budget today. How can there be anyone left when only yesterday, Ranil Wickremesinghe issued warrants against 11 local-level UNP members? From top to bottom, all that the UNP leader does today is issue warrants. As a result, there has been a massive breakdown in the UNP. We have nothing to do with the UNP, especially with Ranil Wickremesinghe. We have nothing whatsoever to do with him. Now there is a big division in the UNP between Sajid and Ranil. Another group has gone to Fonseca. If you look at it this way, there are three factions now. So we do not know which UNP they speak of. If Sajid sends something our way, then we can at least consider it.
ඔබතුමා ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී නම් ඔබතුමා කතෘහස්ත මේ රාජ්‍ය.
If you are an honorable statesman and a civilized person, then we would like to question as to how civilized it is to suppress those who hold opposing views, prevent them from attending a convention, and then extend your tenure to 6 years. Also, we challenge you to allow us to come to the convention. Ranil Wickremesinghe is the deputy chair in the Asian region for the International Democrats Association. We ask that he shows this democracy that he shows to the world, to the party, and call upon all party faithful to come forward on the 1st to dispel this undemocratic and dictatorial image.
මේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍ර විරෝධී ඒකාධිපති වියරුව වළක්වීමට සියලුම එක්සත් ජාතිපාක්ෂිකයන්ට මේ පළවෙනිදා වෙනකොට ඉදිරියට එන්නේ කියමින් මා නිහඬ වෙනවා.
Speaking in Parliament today, UNP Deputy Leader Sajid Premadasa said that the farmers' pension scheme is no longer active. Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Sarath Amunugama responded to this statement.
අප්‍රේල් සිට දෙසැම්බර් මාසෙ දක්වා මේ 2012 වසරේ
From April to December 2012, 960 million was needed to pay for the farmers' pensions. I wish to quote from the Hansard from the 22nd of November 2011. The Minister of Agrarian Services and Wildlife says that steps will be taken to pay farmer pensions with arrears within 2 weeks until the new pension scheme is implemented. What steps will you be taking to pay the sum of money which is yet to be paid? There are 1 million farmers who are beneficiaries of the Farmers' Pension Fund. At this point, I cannot give you an exact date. What I can tell you now is that we will take steps to speedily resolve this. I am disappointed that we were unable to initiate the plan to pay the pensions within 2 weeks.
Still in news from the Parliament, Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa requested parliamentarians to refrain from bringing mobile phones to the Parliament chamber. He made this request when Parliament convened this morning.
Some MPs have made a habit of using their mobile phones inside the chamber. This is wrong and disrespectful. It also affects the public address system. Therefore, I ask that you do not bring your mobile phones inside the chamber.
Australia's Department of Immigration and Citizenship states that a group of 36 Sri Lankan single adult men were returned to Sri Lanka from Christmas Island late yesterday. The department says that this was the 4th involuntary removal last week.
All 36 illegal immigrants were recent arrivals from a number of different boats. Australia's Department of Immigration and Citizenship states that with this group, more than 120 Sri Lankans have been returned over 4 days. Meanwhile, speaking at a media briefing convened in Colombo today by the Australian High Commission, Australia's Regional Director for Immigration in South Asia, Jose Alvarez, expressed these views.
Since the 13th of August, we've seen 257 Sri Lankans returned. So it's 257 Sri Lankans have been returned home. 87 have been voluntarily returned. They've said they've wanted to come home. But we've removed involuntary 170 people who didn't want to go. So 170 people who arrived to Australia by boat were returned to Sri Lanka because they didn't have a valid visa. As people realise that people smugglers tell them lies and false promises, they'll realise that they won't be able to stay in Australia.
Issuing a recorded message, Australia's Minister of Immigration had this to say.
Let me be clear about this. Australia will not take people who do not have genuine claims for asylum. You'll be sent back on the first available flight home. Don't waste your money or risk your life. Hundreds of Sri Lankan nationals have already been returned and more will follow. If you do not have a genuine claim for asylum, you'll be returned very quickly. And there is no money, no assistance for people sent back involuntarily.
Various parties expressed views regarding the statement made by the Minister of Higher Education yesterday on the budget allocation for education next year.
Funds have been increased for education activities of Dallas Alhaperma Skills Development Ministry. Allocations for the National Youth Services Council have been increased. A large sum of money has been allocated for the Sports and Education section of the Ministry of Sports, and a large sum of money has been allocated for the Ministry of Education. Also, financial assistance is being granted today for 16 special projects in education, higher education and vocational training. I asked the University Lecturers Association and our friends to add all these together and then speak of how much has been allocated. I think that Nirmal is now working for 3 camps. Therefore, it is difficult to say what Nirmal's real intentions are. I think the problem here is not connected to mathematics. The problem here is regarding the basic economic policy. Education should be a state responsibility. The government expenditure does not mean the amounts spent by the private sector or the parents.
හරි දෙමව්පියන් හරි කරන වියදම් නෙමෙයි. ඒක මම අයිති කඳවුර පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්නයකට නැත්නම් මට බලපෑම් මෙල්ල වෙන කඳවුරු පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්නයකට වඩා මේ වැදගත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියලා මම හිතනවා ඒ ප්‍රශ්නේ අපිට සාකච්ඡාවට ගන්න පුළුවන් නා.
මේ එක එක අමාත්‍යාංශ වලින් සහ රජයේ ආයතන වලින් අධ්‍යාපන
The government calculates the amount spent by various ministries and government institutions for education and says that this amount is being spent on education. We wish to tell the Ministry of Higher Education that such statements are of no use. Tell us the amount that has been allocated in the budget for higher education and other education activities.
අධ්‍යාපන කටයුතු සඳහා වෙන් කරන ලද අයවැයෙන් වෙන් කරන ඍජු මුදල කීයද?
මේක මහා දූෂිත ආණ්ඩුවක්. මේක මෝඩයින්ගේ ආණ්ඩුවක්.
This is a corrupt government which is full of fools. When the present Minister of Education and Higher Education were appointed, we knew that it would lead to the destruction of the education sector.
අද ඉන්න දෙන්නට බාර දෙනකොට අපි මේ විනාශය මේ රටේ වෙනවයි කියලා අපිට පූර්ව දැක්මක් තිබුණා.